If you're listening for a melody in jazz, you'll probably hear it in the horns or on the piano. But there's one place you don't often hear it, the drums.
Your primary job as a drummer is to keep time.
Drummers have kept time for centuries. We can hear it in the military corps. And drummers continue to keep time in songs we hear on the radio. But the drums are capable of so much more than this. They can sing.
If you go back to African culture where drumming came from, there were talking drums. You know, where they could bend the pitches, and they were communicating with other groups, you know, of the vicinity where they could hear each other, and communicating within the group they were playing in. I play this instrument, and I play jazz specifically because I love to converse and have a dialogue with other musicians. I have to be able to play melodically to be able to interact on the level that I want to interact with the other musicians in my band.
Let's try a little experiment. First, check out the melody in this classic Duke Ellington piece.
Don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing.
You got it? Now let's see if Allison Miller can play it on the drums.
Don't mean a thing if you ain't got that swing.
Allison's playing different drums to produce a range of pitches. The bigger the drum, the lower the note.
Okay, so that's a fairly literal interpretation of a melody. Let me try it now doing one drum rim shots. Cool, you can hear the melody in there, right? And you can even do something like this.
Those are rim shots on multiple drums. We've seen a few tricks jazz drummers use when they solo, but when a singer takes the melody, a drummer becomes more complimentary.
Jazz drummers are always singing that melody in their head. We're comping using thematic nuggets from the melody.
Allison's not playing the melody exactly. Instead, she's playing the rhythm of the melody instead of the notes, and she's still keeping time.
Really exciting. I have to say, I was really surprised when Tim emailed me to do that position because I've played Monterey many times, but never as a leader. The last time I played it was years ago with Dr. Lonnie Smith, I think. Even though I've known Tim forever, I just felt like I wasn't on his radar, you know, to do something like that. So when I got that email, I was really honored and surprised and excited. And I think all of my years I've put into teaching and developing that craft, and also to my performing and all my bands and stuff. I think he finally, or maybe he has noticed it for years. He was just waiting until the right time. I'll be out there 3 times. So I'll be out there for the Next Generation, and then I'll be out there for the Monterey Jazz Camp. Yep. And then the festival. And he's bringing both Boom Tick Boom and Parlor Game to the festival. Day one, I was completely freaked out by the camp because I was young to be doing that position. Also, I was not used to being around such friendly, open-minded Californians in the Redwood Forest. And so I was like, who are all these people who are so sweet and nice hugging me? Like, you know. But then by day 3, I was in, and it felt like family, you know. 11 years ago, and he was really like a dad, not really a dad, more like a grandfather to me, and but also kind of like a best friend, and he was that person that would call me at least once a week and kind of check up on me, like after I moved to New York, but not in a nice way. He'd be like, "What the fuck are you doing with your life?" You know, like he'd call me, leave messages, you know, he'd be like, you know, he'd just say all kinds of crazy stuff on the phone, but usually he was right.
She's my Texarkana baby. Do I love her? Lordy, no. Her pappy came from Texas and her mom from Arkansas.
I come from a very musical family, and almost all the women on my mom's side of the family are musicians, mostly sacred music. Music was just always a part of my upbringing from the very beginning. And, you know, my mom said that even when she was still pregnant with me, that I would kick to the beat of the music when she was directing the choir at church. And then when I came out, she said the same thing. Like, I just was always moving, fidgety, and anytime music was on, which was basically all the time in my house, I was beating along on top of the table and playing as much as possible. And she said that once I started talking, I just always just said, I want to play drums, I want to play drums, I want to play drums. So I think church had a lot of influence. I mean, I wasn't raised on gospel. I was raised in an Episcopalian church, you know, but it had a lot of influence for me. And then at home, we listened to mostly jazz and classical and some kind of, you know, some limited like 70s funk, like, or 70s soul and funk, like Earth, Wind and Fire, and some James Brown. And
that's a great combo. Earth, Wind and Fire used to have their studio out in Carmel Valley.
Oh, wow. That's so great. Yeah, I mean, for me, it was just, music was just a part of our household. And so it was just expected to play music. And I never thought twice about it, you know. And we were always singing. We were always making up beats, you know, on the kitchen table, me and my sisters. All three of us we all played multiple instruments and sang. I don't know if they're lullabies, but I sing like Puff the Magic Dragon. We do a lot of making up songs. My daughter really, both my wife is a singer, she's a great singer, and my daughter loves to sing. So we kind of just make up songs. Sometimes she'll give me a topic and we just do it. And she likes to sit at the piano and just kind of, you know, improvise. So we do a lot of that. I'll sing. Sometimes I like to sing Prince songs because I'm like some of his flow. It's funny. I don't really know like traditional lullabies, but I sing like some of my favorite slow songs. One of those is Prince. I like to sing The Nearness of You to her.
Wow.
Those are kind of my go-tos. It changes, you know. I mean, I have my son is 1 now, and so now I'm kind of in the mode of singing to him. But he's a very different kid, you know. He's like, we read like 2 books, and I maybe do a little humming of a song, and then he's like, okay, good night.
Wow. It's so different.
The Ride. It starts crazy, and it's almost like a ska reggae thing, and then it goes into a chamber jazz moment with no drums, you know?
Yeah.
And that's supposed to be that, because that song is about, I wrote that song after this trip that my family took, and that it was like the dichotomy between the ups and the downs of that trip were so drastic that I was like, I have to write a tune about this. This is so insane, you know, just as far as like how it is to be a parent and traveling, and like, you know, your kids are insane one moment and then so sweet the next, you know. And I just felt like, whoa, this is my life. This is crazy, you know. So then I wrote that song.
So your only job is to be honest. I mean, that is deep, and that could be taken on so many levels, you know, and applied in so many different ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Your only job is to be honest. I mean, wow, if we approach 3 aspects of our life with in mind, it would be a beautiful place, or maybe not a beautiful place.
Well, exactly. You know, we nobody knows the future, so you do things today and you don't really know what they mean over time. But what else are you going to do?
I came up to New York, but I was so scared to drive into the city, so I parked my car in New Jersey, and of all ways to first come to New York, I took a ferry over from New Jersey, and we got off at 34th Street, like where Javits Center is, and I was all of a sudden on the island of Manhattan, and it was like kind of a real story, like a storybook kind of journey of New York for the first time, because we landed, we walked onto the island, and it was super sketchy back then, sketchy part of New York, you know, and I just immediately fell in love with it. I was like, oh, there's a jazz musician. Oh, there's like a trans person. Oh, okay, over here. What's over here? You know, there's just so much to offer. I loved it. I did whatever I needed to do to just be able to play music, you know, and it was great. I mean, I just ate it up. I also liked how kind of nothing is odd in New York. You know what I mean? Like even today, I was on the subway today, and I was at West Forest, and I was waiting for the train to come back to Brooklyn, and there was this this guy. Well, I guess not really. I mean, he's born a man, but he was dressed up like in this kind of grandma, kind of an old-fashioned grandma dress, and he had a wig on and some lipstick, and he had this whole setup, and he sounded like Billie Holiday, and he was singing and he had an acoustic guitar, but he also had like a whole elaborate setup. He had a little train track set up with elephants going around. I mean, it was just out, you know. Even for me, who's been here for so many years, I was like, well, I hadn't really seen that version of this before, and I was just like, New York is great, and no one's batting an eye, no one cares, you know what I mean? And it's like anything goes, you know. And I loved that about New York. And all that, but there were all these tiny clubs in the East Village and the Lower East Side that were having jazz every night. And so, like, one of the first nights I was in New York, I went to this place called La Linea, and there was a gig going on, and the drummer basically was nodding out because he had just shot up, and he was nodding out, and he couldn't really play. And then someone was like, who could play? And I was like, I will, you know. So it's just like I jumped right in. I feel like a lot of these young drummers that are coming in that I'm teaching, I feel for them because they aren't getting a chance to hear the real masters because there aren't that many alive anymore, you know. And it's a special thing. Like, you know, I was saying, like, when I first moved to New York, I would just go, like, hear Billy Higgins for 7 nights in a row at the Vanguard, and, you know, and they would just let me in because I was a young musician. And then I would like scoot over and hear Andrew Surreal, or then I would hear Elvin and Tony, you know, like I lived on the Upper West Side, and Max and Elvin and Paul Mosh, they all lived up there. I would pass them on the street, you know, and it was like so life-altering to hear those drummers on a regular basis, you know, and I feel like a lot of these young players aren't getting a chance to hear that, and there's something in hearing that live, like hearing Elvin hit his ride cymbal once was life-changing.